We've got 7 different stories for 7 different media outlets, you guys. It's time for another episode of Regan's Newsround. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with another episode of Regan's Newsround, where I cover 7 different news stories from 7 different outlets, you guys. And we start here with The Guardian, with Tories should give up the £10 million that the Frank Hester donation, most voters say. The exclusive from this Guardian reveals that the poll suggests public want to see consequences for offensive remarks, and many favour giving the money to anti-racism charities. And I pretty much said this already, and I was saying this on the live stream not too long ago as well, and I agree. I think and even though this is just a poll, and you always take polls with a pinch of salt, most most people see this as is abhorrent, it's disgusting, and it's pathetic. The way that the Conservatives won't call it out properly for what it is, and they're trying to play it down because this is one of their biggest donors, and it's really pretty despicable, really, from the Conservatives, to say the least. Um, and I'm glad, that there are many people within the public who are seeing it. But again, it is only one poll, so you just have to take it like that. But there is a great deal of there is some anger out there, because you hear it from radio shows, you hear it from some of the tweets and whatnot from people tweeting into certain TV shows and whatnot are all around the UK, so you will hear some of that, there. And I think the money should go to anti-racism charities, because the Conservatives obviously don't need that money. We know they're going down the toilet anyway. Well, at least we think they are. And why not give it to anti-racism charities who do some really tough job, and they're having a harder time as it is, considering the rhetoric that the current government is using at times. So it makes sense for the money to go to them, but we all know that they're not going to give that money to them. We know it's not going to happen. As much as we want it to, we know it's unlikely to do so. So more than half of voters think the Conservatives should give up Frank Hester's £10 million donation because of his offensive remarks, the new polling suggests. A snap poll conducted after the Guardian revealed offensive comments the Tory donor made about Diane Abbott has found the public want to see consequences for Hester's words. A survey of 1,001 people, so like I said, it's only a snap poll. 1,001 people, more than 60%, agree with the statement that mainstream political parties should not accept donations from people who are found to have made racist or offensive remarks. The poll, carried out by JL Partners for the campaign group 38 Degrees on Tuesday, show 52% of people say the Tories should not keep the £10 million, with 73% of them saying that the money should be handed to a charity focused on tackling racism. Less than a quarter, 27%, think the money should be returned to Hester. So this is obviously the graphs here. So from the statistics, more than half of voters believe the Conservative Party should return Hester's money. So just breaking it down here, would you describe Frank Hester's remarks as racist? All respondents, 68% said yes, 32% said no. 2019 Tory voters, 56% said yes, 44% said no. Interesting there. Now, some people think that his comments weren't racist when they actually were quite blatant. Does the Conservative Party have a problem with racism amongst its MPs? So all respondents, 56% said yes. Grey bar obviously means they don't know, or they can't answer. 18% said no. And the 2019 Tory voters, 39%, think there is. And then a grey bar there. But 37% are said no. So a lot more Tory voters are thinking no, there isn't a problem. There isn't an institutional racism problem with the Conservative Party. Should the Conservative Party keep or return Hester's £10 million donation? 52% said return, 34% said keep, a small percentage not sure. The 2019 Tory voters think 33% say it should be returned. 55% of the 2019 Tory voters say they should keep the money. It does say a lot about certain voters, doesn't it? Interesting. Is the country more or less united since Rishi Sunak became Prime Minister? 11% think so. I'm not sure who these 11% are. Then there's quite a large gap of don't know, and 46% say no, less. And then 2019 Tory Conservative voters, 16% said yes. Big large gap of don't knows, and 35% saying less united, pretty much there. So Hester said in a 2019 meeting that he did not hate all black women, but he did see Diane Abbott, who is Britain's longest serving black MP, on TV, make you want to hate all black women because she's there. Rishi Sunak told the press secretary Hester was not a racist, telling reporters, "I'll point you to his own words when he talks about racism in a poison. There's no place for it in public life," she added. "You can look at this record, his actions and also his words yesterday." More than half of people believe the Conservative Party is a problem for racism among its Tory MPs, donors and members. Among 2019 voters, 37% think there is a racist problem within the party. Of all those polled, only 11% believe the Prime Minister succeeded in his aim of making the country more united, and 36% of the public believe the Tory party takes allegations of racism seriously. Andy Street, the Conservative Mayor of West Midlands, added to the pressure being applied by Labour and the Liberal Democrats by saying the Prime Minister should think about the company he kept and returned the donation. The Chancellor Jeremy Hunt, meanwhile, said Hester should not be cancelled for remarks he made in the past. Matthew McGregor, Chief Executive at 38 Degrees, said, "If donors who make racist statements don't face real consequences, the Conservative Party is showing us that it can't deal with racism and sexism in its own ranks. And as others' recent headlines show, this isn't an isolated incident, which is Sunak's press siding over a country that is becoming more and more diverse, divided, and a party that cannot control racist members or donors, and British voters can clearly see that." A statement from TPP said Hester accepts that he was rude about Diane Abbott in a private meeting several years ago, but his criticism had nothing to do with her gender nor colour of her skin. The statement said Hester had tried to apologise directly for the hurt he has caused, and he was deeply sorry for his remarks. The statement also said that he abhorred racism. Well, no, I don't believe a word that he says that he's genuinely sorry and that he thinks it's initially coming across like it's like no, it's like I honestly I'm sorry about those remarks. I don't get that impression at all, if I'm honest, guys. I really don't. Maybe some of you do, but I certainly don't. But I will say it's interesting poll from the Guardian, even though it's a snap one. But I think once I think they get asked again, from other polls on this, we'll see a much more bright picture on it. But the fact that still some people think that the fact there were some Tory voters who think the money should be kept, that's really bad, to show that money above everything else really matters to some of them, which is absolutely crazy to me, guys. But I've covered this on numerous occasions. Obviously, 2 live streams already are on this as well, and I've got a separate video, as you guys will be dropping at some point as well on it. So this will not be so it will probably be one more time I'll be talking about it, but but it is really needs to be highlighted just how dangerous and the rhetoric and the tone that's being used in it as well, and I think that's really important to make. So I wasn't originally going to do this, but I found this story this morning, and I think this is worth talking about. It was an exclusive from I'm losing my words already, guys, and I haven't even started. And it's exclusive from Sky News. So, British troops knowingly exposed to toxic chemicals during the Iraq War tell of cancer battles and daily nosebleeds. Nearly 100 RAF soldiers were ordered to guard the Qamar Ali water treatment plant in 2003. They didn't know it was covered in sodium ditchrum, a deadly chemical that causes cancer. Oh my god. That's terrible. That's really upsetting. That's really upsetting. I myself, while I wasn't into politics back in 2003, I certainly didn't want us going to war, just like many other people, and I'm sure some of you who are probably listening to this were probably out there protesting, and I'm glad if you did. Hats off to you if you did go out and protest against this war. It should never have happened in the first place, and lots of soldiers lost their lives, and there are soldiers still to this day suffering as a result of that conflict. more than 20 years ago now. Yeah, more than 20 years ago since the Iraq War now. And yeah, it's just for these soldiers to be going through what they're going through. It's pretty abhorrent, to say the least, guys. So let me read into it. So Iraq war veteran Andy Tosh points to his nose when he was treated for skin cancer and showed the red marks on his hand. His health has been permanently damaged, not by the baking heat of the Iraqi desert, he says, but by a toxic chemical at the industrial site he was ordered to guard. It's clear British troops were knowingly exposed, the 58-year-old former RAF sergeant said. Sky News can reveal that nearly 100 British troops may have been exposed to sodium difromate while guarding the Quamant Ali water treatment plant in 2003. 10 British veterans who guarded the plant have now spoken publicly about their ordeal, saying they feel betrayed by the UK government after struggling with a range of health problems, including daily nosebleed, a brain tumour, and 3 who have been diagnosed with cancer. Described as deadly poison, sodium dioramin is known carcinogen. The ground at Quamant Ali was covered in it, according to a former serviceman. The Ministry of Defence said it's willing to meet the veterans to work with them going forward, but the former troops say it wants answers and accountability. I think that's a bit hard. I'm not sure how they're going to get answers and accountability, really. It's going to be tough for them. In the opening months of the Iraq War, around 88 British troops were deployed to Quamant Ali, providing an armed guard detail around the clock. Located near Basra, Quamant Ali, built in the 1970s to pump water through a network of pipes in order to flush out oil nearby. Watering heavy combat gear, British soldiers endured baking 50 degrees heat in the day and listened to rocket fire from insurgents at night as they patrolled the industrial facility. What they didn't know was that the place was contaminated by sodium dithramine, a chemical used to prevent corrosion. Before the US took over the site, the water was filtered and treated with sodium dithramine to increase the life of pipelines, pumps, and other equipment. So this is apparently... So sodium carbonate is highly cantatotic, apparently. So this is apparently what it looks like there. It's a type of hexavalent chromolonium. I'm really sorry if I mispronounce these words. A group of compounds made famous by the 2000 film Eric Boswick, in which dramatized the contamination of water around a Californian town. Members of the military describe how thousands of bags of the orange powder was kept in a building with no roof, some of them ripped open, exposing their contents to the wind. Others were spread throughout the facility. Why were there British soldiers there at all? What was the purpose of British soldiers being there guarding this? Quamant Ali was considered critical to getting Iraq's oil production up and running after Saddam Hussein was defeated, and the US government appointed contractors KBR to run the site. US soldiers would escort a convoy of KBR workers to Quamant Ali on day trips, where they would work under protection of the British RAF troops. The site was in disrepair where they arrived, so this is a picture of the apparent site of it. It was like a scrapyard, said Jim Gareth, a former corporal who was deployed to Iraq after serving in Northern Ireland. Amid the chaos of the invasion, much of the site had been looted for metal, leaking chlorine gas canisters laying on the ground. But what he could not be explained were the nosebleeds, rashes, and lessons suffered by UK troops stationed there, said the former serviceman and among the US soldiers who visited the site. I noticed a rash on my forearms, Mr. Tosh said. I'd operated in other hot tropical countries and never had a rash like this in any of my forearms. Other members of our teams had different symptoms, but at the time we had no idea why. It was a mystery. So workers appeared to be wearing hazmat suits and respirators had to be put up the warning signs. They weren't covered up during this then? They were just in their soldier equipment then? That is until 2 workers in hazmat suits and respirator masks turned up in August 2003 and put up a sign with a skull and crossbones on it. So they knew, and they had soldiers. Soldiers were there, and someone knew the dangers. Warning: chemical hazards. Full protective equipment and chemical respirators required. Sodium domain exposed. The sign reads. We were shocked, Mr. Tosh. We've already been on that site for months, being exposed. Yeah, somebody knew and left the somebody knew and left the soldiers there. It was difficult. It was a different type of threat that none of us could really understand. So these guys turned up after months. After months of them guarding it. So someone knew that this was dangerous. Nobody thought to say anything to the British soldiers here. Someone somewhere knew about this and kept it quiet. And the yellow-orange powder wasn't just on the ground, it was being blown away in the wind, Mr. Garrett said. And it's been blown all over the place as well. So it could potentially have been blown into their faces and whatnot as well. Not just to mention them inhaling it, smelling whatever scent it comes off, if any. So, being known to us, it was all around us all the time, he added. Oh my God. An investigation by the US Defense Department found service members and civilians were unintentionally exposed to toxic chemicals. So this is the sign they put up there for warning people. The report also pointed blame at KBR for a delay in recognising and responding to the hazard post for sodium diamond. So this was the KBR's fault. It said KBR became aware of the use of sodium diarmate at Qamart Ali as early as 31st of May 2003 when the company reviewed an Iraq operational manual describing the use of chemicals at the facility. So they knew as early as May 2003. According to the report, both KBR and Task Force Restore Iraq Oil, the military group responded for restoring Iraq's oil production, reported in June 2003 that the site was potentially contaminated with sodium diarmate, which they recognised as carrageen. US commander's death has been linked to it. So this is a picture of the water treatment facility in 2004 at work. The plight of US troops who were exposed to sodium diarmate at Qamart Ali is far better documented for the UK counterparts. National Guardsmen who visited the site become ill, leading to a formal inquiry and government support for veterans across the pond. While I was at Qamart Ali, I began suffering from severe nosebleeds. Russell Powell, an American former medic, told the Senate inquiry. Within 3 days of arriving at the plant in April 2003, he developed rashes on his knuckles, hands and forearms, he said. Others on his platform suffer similar elements, he added. Mr. Powell, who said he had questions at KBR worker about the powder, who said his supervisor had told him not to worry about it. So this is another picture of the evidence of you can see the contamination. It's all over the place. Speaking at a hearing in 2009 as held part of an inquiry, Mr. Powell added, "My symptoms have not changed since my service in Iraq. I cannot take a full breath." Lieutenant Colonel James Gevley of the Indiana National Guard was stationed at Qamart Ali in 2003. They had this information and he didn't share it, he said in a dissertation video. His face pale as he struggles to breathe. He was referred to contractors KBR. "I'm dying now because of it." Lieutenant Colonel Kelly died from cancer in 2009. The US Army deemed that his death was in line with his duty for exposed to sodium diarmate according to the court documents. These both US and UK troops. I'm assuming that were stationed working there. Court case against KBR was overturned. In a high-profile court case, 12 US servicemen were awarded $85 million after a jury found KBR failed to protect them from exposed to cancer-causing chemicals. Each soldier was awarded $7.1 million for reckless and outrageous indifference to their health and their trial in the organ. However, the case was overturned after KBR argued that Oregon court could not have jurisdiction and it should be transferred to Texas. Ultimately, appeals court decided in favour of KBR, affirming a previous ruling that Qamart Ali veterans had not provided sufficient evidence that any health issues were caused by the sodium diarmate. So is this are we having a blame game here of, well, they didn't have enough evidence to know it was going to be an issue? But surely they would have known, based on the history of the place and the people who have worked there. I'm assuming Iraqi workers who work on the site know of the dangers of these chemicals, do they not? Surely they would have known the dangers of this from that point of view. But yet the soldiers were still made to go and work in. Not soldiers and work. They were still made to guard in knowing that these chemicals were exposed. I still feel I'm getting the impression that KBR knew about it and are just trying to dodge any kind of repercussions here. My nose just started gushing with blood. In the UK, there has been no dedicated ongoing support for Qamar Ali veterans and silence from the government, the former British serviceman said. They said they feel let down and worry they could develop cancer at any time as a result of their exposure 2 decades ago. Mr. Tosh, who left the RAF in 2006 after nearly 24 years of service, said he had skin cancer on his nose and marks on his right hand. That's the hand for holding my weapon, and which would have had more dust or toxic chemical potentially on it, he told Sky News from his home in Lichtenstein, where he lives with his wife. The former veteran Tim Harrison said he has experienced worsening nosebleeds in recent years, which he believes are a result of his exposure to sodium ditromate. Now working as a pandemic and living in Doncaster, he told Sky News, last year I was at work and all of a sudden my nose just started gushing with blood. I couldn't stop it for 2 or 3 hours and I had to get admitted to A&E and stay overnight. Since then, Mr. Harrison said that he has daily nosebleeds as well as skin lesions on his legs. Oh my god. What's going to happen in 10 years' time? What else is going on, he asks. Mr. Gareth has had skin cancer, including a lesion on his neck and spots on his head. Both areas are less likely to have been covered by combat gear in his heat. Oh my god. The former Qamar Ali veteran Craig Warner has medically discharged from the RAF after he was found to have had brain tumour, a condition his surgeon attributed to chemical exposure. Other veterans who said they have had long-term health problems after being exposed at Qamar Ali included Eric Page, who has been treated for testicular cancer that has spread to his stomach, limbs, nose, and severe headaches. Ben Evans, who had his nose had to be cauterized to stop nosebleeds. Tony Walters, whose arms itch until they bleed. Andrew Day, who has regular nosebleeds and lessons over his arms. And Darren Walters, who has a rash on his skin. And they're not the only ones from their squadron who have become unwell, they said. 2 others reportedly to have died, although it has not been confirmed if their deaths are related to health problems linked to Qamar Ali. It's just one of Qamar Ali's veterans to have spoken to Sky News. He's without ongoing symptoms, has said he worries about what could happen in the future. Some who served there may be unaware of the exposure at all, the veterans have said. This is a picture of the site in February 2022. So what are the scientists saying about it? So a 2019 analysis of existing studies found that hexavalent chromium, which sodium diaromate is a type, may cause cancers of the respiratory system, bowel cavity, and phoenix, prostate, and stomach in humans. And is related to increased risk of overall mortality owing to lung, bladder, kidney, testicular, bone, and thoracic cancer. Oh my god. During the Senate inquiry, epidemiologist Herman Gibbs said symptoms reported by soldiers during their time at the site were consistent with significant exposure to sodium diaromate. He said that it was possible that chromium could cause continuing symptoms after leaving the body, given its highly irritative nature. Asked by Sky News whether skin cancers developed by veterans years later could be linked to Qamar Ali, he said it was more likely than not caused by sun exposure rather than the chemicals. But he added it was possible that damage to the skin caused by chromium would have been exaggerated by sunlight to the point of developing skin tumour. This was difficult to know without further research, he said. Now discharged from the military and 2 decades after they were posted to Qamar Ali, the British veterans said they want Ministry of Defence to take responsibility. Is this a cover-up? I don't want to believe it, but it's true, Mr. Gareth said. Mr. Toss adds, I hate to think nowadays, but out of the number of people who went there, how many people are ill or maybe have passed away? They want a public inquiry into what happened and for the Ministry of Defence to ensure that everyone who served at Qamar Ali has been contacted and offered ongoing medical support. We shouldn't have been there in the first place, but even when the warning signs went up, why did they make us stay? Asked Mr. Todd. So they were still staying there after the signs were put up as well. Wow. Because we're expendable, because it was pumping oil, the site was much more important than any of our lives. Oil. It's all about oil, as we all know. We should never have been there, soldiers. We should never have been in Iraq. In a statement to Sky News, the Ministry of Defence have said, "We value the service of our personnel and all our operations have health and safety policies in place to mitigate against risk. As soon as we were alerted to the possible exposure of sodium diarmate, an environmental survey was conducted to evaluate typical exposure at Qamar Ali. Results showing that the levels at the time were significantly below UK government's guidance levels. Anyone who required medical treatment can receive it through the Defence Medical Service and other appropriate services. Veterans who believe they have suffered ill health due to services can apply for a no-fault compensation under the War Pension Scheme." In a statement to Sky News, KPR said the company was performing work at the direction of the US Army under the extreme and continuous evolving conditions of wartime Iraq. KPR abided to the war zone chain of command. KPR reasonably, timely, and repeatedly notified the US Army of sodium diarmate at the facility upon discovering it and acted promptly to address it. All of the claims made by KPR were dismissed by US courts. KPR is a proud supporter of US and allied forces and served those nations with integrity and honour. Something tells me that I have a very hard time believing that, guys. Integrity and honour. And the reason why I say that is because to say that people did not know about this beforehand. Yes, okay, yes, there was a war taking place on. Yes, it was a lot. And of course, oil really matters, yeah, to Western nations. I get that. But someone somewhere knew. Like, people literally work at the place, so it doesn't take two, like, people who work at the place, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know, to ask questions about whether or not there's potential danger here about people not being in certain suits and whatnot. To me, the way I see this as is that is that they knew about it. I don't know if the US government knew about it. It's entirely possible. The KBR knew about this, guys, in my opinion. I believe they knew about this, and they intentionally just didn't, either intentionally or unintentionally, didn't tell their troops. And we're very late telling them. And and troops are going to suffer as a result of it. And whether something tells me they're never going to gain justice. And that's the thing that really upsets me the most. I got the feeling that they will never get justice for this. They can get compensation. I think they can get compensation from the British government. But whether they'll get any kind of justice, I don't think so, guys. It's really, really terrible. But it's a horrible, horrible situation. And my heart goes out to these veterans. Because they shouldn't even have been that. You know, we can talk for ages about that war and how it should never have taken place and we should never have been involved and whatnot. But for me, you know, the loss of life there was absolutely terrible. But just this story about soldiers being made to guard this refinery just for oil, knowing that they were being exposed to these chemicals, knowing that this could potentially kill them and be fatal to them, no one doing anything about it. And that's the thing that really kind of grinds my gears here. That's what really upsets me the most. You know, that's still there's still people's lives there that have been destroyed by this, some who are already gone because of it. It is a scandal. It's a scandal. There's no two ways about it. Guys, while you're here, make sure you please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. And share across social media so others are notified of this video. And subscribe if you've not been a subscriber. It really does help support the channel. So next one, guys, is a short one here from the BBC. An MP regains the Labour whip after using contentious phrase. The Labour Party has reinstated the whip to the MP who used a controversial phrase at the pro-Palestinian rally. Andy MacDonald, who represented Middlesbrough, was suspended from the party in October after he used the phrase "between the river and the sea." Labour said its investigation found Mr MacDonald had not engaged in conduct that was against the party's rulebook. No, so my memory of it at the time seems to Obviously, at the time, it was not very good. Um, I think if I recall, I was like, there is no need for him to. I didn't think his comments were offensive or bad or in any way, but obviously upset and triggered some people. But um, I mean, obviously, I just think as long as he's more careful with his wordings and phrases going forward, I don't think it should be an issue. I don't know Andy McDonald too well. Labour said Mr. McDonald said he would not use the phrase again, and he had not intended his words to cause anyone's distress or anguish. In a speech at a demonstration in October, Mr. McDonald, the former shadow minister under Jeremy Corbyn, said, "We will not rest until we have justice, until all people, Israeli and Palestinians between the river and sea, can live in a peaceful liberty." He didn't say anything wrong. It was, at the time, the phrase "river to the sea" refers to land between the River Jordan and the Mediterranean. Has been used in chants heard at pro-Palestinian demonstrations. The use of the chant seen by Israel and many Jewish groups has called for the destruction of Israel. Pro-Palestinian activists says most people using the chant are calling for an end to Israel's occupation of the West Bank and the blockage of Gaza. That refreshes my memory. Yeah. So there's different, like it's been said, that there's different interpretations of the term "from river to the sea," different interpretations from different people, different from different sides of the spectrum. So whether you're from Israel, from Palestine, or what you read up, there's different ways of reading it. But I'm glad that it's kind of been put to bed, sort of thing. And I think it's right it's been restored, because at the time things were extremely heated at the time. It was the killing and what happened on October the 7th. It was very, very hot time, and Labour needed to kind of buckle down, whether you agree or disagree at the time. Labour were just trying to protect themselves. So it seems like they've quietly restored him back in. That's kind of how I interpret this. Pro-Palestinian activists said most people using the chant are calling for an end to Israel's occupation of the West Bank and the blockage of Gaza. The abominations of anti-Semitism. So Mr. McDonald has said, "It was never my intention to use the words that would cause anyone distress or anguish, and I bitterly regret the pain and hurt caused. Accordingly, I will not use that phrase again. I was disappointed that the reason for my suspension was misreported in some quarters, and this has caused reputational damage to myself and further pain and suffering to others. I will continue to denounce the abomination of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia where they raise their ugly head. These are the reasons why I joined Labour 45 years ago." The Chief Whip, Sir Alan Campbell, had received assurances from Mr. McDonald about his future conduct and that he understands he needs to be mindful. A Labour spokesperson said the Chief Whip has today restored the Labour Whip to Andy McDonald MP. This follows a full investigation by the Labour Party into complaints received about public remarks that he made in October 2023. The investigation concludes that he had not engaged in conduct that was against the party's rulebook, but reminded him of the importance of elected representatives being mindful not only of what they say in public, but how their words may be interpreted, especially in reference to controversial and emotional issues. So that's pretty much the gist of the story, really. Put to bed now. He's back in the party, whether you like him, agree with him, or not. I think he was speaking with his conscience at the time, and I generally think that he did not know that those comments at the time would cause such a massive uproar, but they did cause a massive uproar, and I don't think that was initially what was initially his intention, in my opinion, guys, on that. So guys, the next one I've got for you here is an exclusive from iNews. More about towards asylum, immigration and whatnot here. So £10,000 fines for migrant stowaways have lorry firms fearing bankruptcy. A haulage firm is exploring launching legal action against the government over its complete unfair fines for stowaways found on their trucks. So before I even read this article, guys, just looking at that headline, and I have to say here, I think there's a case here for this haulage firm, and I think there's a case here for other haulage firms as well, because they can't. How can they stop people, migrants, breaking into their trucks on their way to Calais from? They can't always stop them getting into these trucks. It's just one driver in there, and unless he sees them actually getting in, like, what are they supposed to do? getting under the vehicles and whatnot. And I don't think it's fair that these firms should face these massive fines. I think it's completely unfair. It's not their fault. It really is not their fault. And we have to remember that there are no legal routes whatsoever for migrants to come to. Excuse me, no legal routes for migrants to come to the UK. There's no legal way for them to come unless you are from Ukraine, unless you are from Hong Kong. There are some exemptions for Afghans, and at the moment there's no scheme whatsoever for Palestinians at the moment. There's no legal way for these migrants to come to it. So the only way they can come to the UK is illegally. But there is no such thing as an illegal migrant. It's just a terminology made, to be honest. But they would rather come, the vast majority would rather come a legal way to the UK rather than an illegal way. You want to put it like that. Then that's the thing. We want to stop this, and you can significantly reduce this, or even stop it altogether, just by setting up a legal centre of some sorts here in Calais. But we know the government doesn't want to do that because they want to keep stoking the tensions of culture war and hatred and whatnot, amongst them. And I think I think they should explore legal action here, the firm, because they are in an impossible situation, saying, like, you're blaming us for migrants coming on when you're not providing a safe and legal route for them to come to the UK. If you provided safe and legal routes, they would not need to get on boats to cross the channel. They would not need to get on our trucks. They would not need to disrupt the Eurostar going in, and the Eurostar and the Eurotunnel situation of trains coming in and out of the UK to Europe. All these things there would be minimised disruption, much minimal disruption, if there was created a legal route. So I do think there's a case here. And another thing as well, £10,000 fine? Like, a company getting £10,000 fine for this? Like, that's so harsh. To me, it's incredibly harsh. Now, if they were doing it with intent to bring migrants, that's one thing. Okay, but unintentional, like, do we honestly believe that these firms are intentionally stowing migrants to the UK? Do we actually believe that? Because I generally believe these are the vast majority. There may possibly be possibly one firm, maybe one or two trucks or vans or whatever trying to sneak some in. It's entirely possible. But the vast majority don't want this. They don't want to get a £10,000 fine. And then when they find out when they get to the UK that there was some on there, then they get slapped with the fine. Just because they put all the locks and everything they could on their doors. It just doesn't feel right in any way, shape or form. It really does not. Haulers facing £10,000 fine for inadvertently having migrants aboard their lorries fear their penalties could see them go bust. Companies and drivers face fines of up to £10,000 for each stowaway after the government increased the maximum penalty from £2,000 last year. Haulers can also be fined up £6,000 if their vehicle are unsecured under the stricter penalty system. Recent data shows haulage businesses are closing at a faster rate in a decade amid a perfect storm of high inflation and interest rates. One haulage firm is exploring a legal challenge against the government over its completely unfair fines for stowaway found on trucks. The bosses at Ackland Transport for Hyde Kent said the firm was speaking to lawyers about launching a High Court judicial review into the Home Office over its penalty charges. In 3 instances, it says the Border Force and French authorities checked for trucks failed to locate migrants who were discovered upon arrival at the yard of the firm, which was fined up to £3,000 per stowaway after alerting police. £3,000 per stowaway. It's just not fair on these firms. That's just not fair. I'm sorry. Like, I can understand if a firm gets fined £60 or something, but like £3,000? This just doesn't feel right. It feels like just extortion to me. We want to take the government to court. It's absolutely ridiculous that they are what they are doing. Lorenzo Sacco, owner and managing director of Alkane Transport, told the Eye. We do due diligence, we stick to the Home Office guidance, and despite all of it, it's an automatic fine. Haulers and lorry drivers are not police officers. Yeah, exactly. This is the thing. It's not their job to stop these migrants. In the past 12 months, 463 haulage businesses have gone bust. 463 in the last 12 months have gone bust. Wow, that's so bad. More than double the number 2 years ago, according to accountancy firm Price Bailey. On top of that, you get massive fines for illegal migrations as well, said Mr. Zanarito. Some of them may just could not make it, and they just have to pull the plug on the company. Addison Transport, which has a fleet of around 150 lorries, loses on average about £110,000 to £120,000 a year in lost goods after migrants boarded lorries, Mr. Zarenko added. Mr. Zarenko said one of the company drivers was badly beaten after confronting a group of stowaways who had climbed onto his truck. So he gets beaten up, and the company still gets fined for this as well. Recent Home Office figures show a 16% year-on-year increase in migrants smuggled into the UK in vehicles or ferries, indicate an uptick in attempting lorry crossing as French police clamp down on small boat crossings. UK data shows 120 migrants were detected at a UK pool in the final quarter of 2023, up from 103 of the same period of 2022. However, this represents a fraction of the true figure, as it does not include those who evade capture in the UK or attempts to board vehicles on the continent. So we don't even know. Wow. So we don't even know the true figure. So it could even be worse than that, guys. It could even be worse than this. Dominic Graham, a manager at Alkaline, said haulers have seen a spike in fines in the past 6 months and indicated more attempts to cross by lorry were being made. Well, that's the thing. If the weather is terrible, what are they going to do? They're going to turn to lorries, aren't they? So instead of crossing by boat, they're going to cross by lorry, and this is what they're going to do. If a driver makes one small mistake, the employer is penalised for it anyway, as well as the driver. And if the driver doesn't pay on time, it falls on the employer, he said. And that driver loses his job as well. That driver ends up paying the fine and loses his job. It's a completely unfair system. You're darn right it's an unfair system. We've had 3 instances in the last 6 months, maybe a bit longer, where border forces have not found any immigrants on our trucks because they've come through x-ray machines, etc. Yet we have found them, and when they arrive in our yard, we have immediately called the police, and so when they come along and take these clandestines away, and then to top it all off, we receive a fine for having an unsecure vehicles. It's not fair. It's not fair. So when they find them and they tell the police and all that, they still get slapped with a fine. It's not fair. It's just such a crap system. It's BS. It's total BS is what this is. You know, I really do feel sorry for these haulage companies and these truck drivers, yeah, who are just doing their jobs. They're just there to do a job to go from A to B. They don't want nothing to do with this whole migrant thing. But yet they're being penalised here. Unfairly penalised here. It's not right in any way, shape or form. Ashton Cole, a public affairs manager at the Road Haulage Association, which represents around 8,000 members, around 300 of whom travel to Europe, saying they are encouraging the government to do a stock take on the new penalty system. Obviously, we have nothing against keeping borders secure, and haulage are doing everything possible to do so, he said. However, we do not want haulers and drivers who have done everything they possibly can to face punishment. And this is the thing. I feel like the vast majority of them are doing absolutely everything they possibly can to stop them getting on. But to me, it just feels unfair on these lot. We have to think about what we're asking drivers to do here. If they don't have the support of border force and French authorities, they may often be forced to enter, directly challenging clandestine entrants who get violent. And we shouldn't necessarily be asking drivers to put themselves in physical danger or face a large fine. They are not trained to deal with potentially violent individuals. And this is the other thing as well. Like we just saw up there one driver had brutally had himself beaten because he caught them in there, and obviously. They from the migrants' point of view, they want to come to the UK. They need to come to the UK. Everything matters for them coming to the UK, and that driver knows that he's going to face a fine. He's going to potentially lose his job and whatnot. And it's just, and he's just one person. It's just one driver, and it's just a really crap situation for the driver. HGV driver Nick Weller from Nottingham said he was confronted by one migrant armed with a knife who had jumped on board his lorry in Belgium about a month ago. He had cut the roof of my trailer to get in. I couldn't get in, so I'm getting off my trailer, and then there he is standing with a knife in his hand. Luckily, he wasn't violent, he said. I've just done a trailer change in Calais with one of my colleagues. We had to climb inside and double check because we can't afford these fines. But what happens between now and the boats I've got no control over, and it's not fair how we are being treated once these people are found in our trailers. I'm just a lorry driver, I'm just trying to do my job. The Home Office was contacted for comment. It's an impossible situation, guys. It's an impossible situation. What on earth are they supposed to do? I can't believe how many haulage firms have gone bust. I can't believe how many. It's madness. It's absolutely madness, guys. It's really, really horrible. And all these drivers have lost their drivers as well, who have been taught. Like, some of these employers can be really, really nasty. You know, we've got some really nasty employers in this country, right? And they get caught out of this, and they're saying, well, this is your fault, driver. You're going to pay for this. And I'm thinking, what? Why are the drivers going to pay for this? You didn't lock it up properly. And I'm just thinking, to me, it's so unfair. It is so unfair. And this can be avoided. This can be avoided if we just have some kind of legal route for people to come to the UK. But there isn't one. And that's the problem. There's no legal route for them. This could be avoided. And all these companies, all these jobs now going because of it as well. It's just absolutely terrible, guys. It really, really is. So, guys, we reached the halfway point here on Regan's Newsround. If you haven't, please consider becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p. It really does help support the channel in any way, shape or form if you can do so. There's also $2.99 membership, which allows you early access to my content once I've created it and uploaded it onto YouTube. Those who are Snowflake Corporals at $2.99 get early access to content. Additionally, you can also financially support me either by buying me a coffee or on Patreon. One of those two links for them are in the description as well. If you want to financially support me those ways instead of doing it through YouTube, you're more than welcome to do so. So thank you to everyone and anyone who has financially supported me in any way, shape or form. It is greatly appreciated. So guys, we've got a funny video here to break things up a little bit here on Regan's Newsround. Hope you guys enjoyed this. This is from Matt Green here. With the title, Will the Minister Condemn a Racist Donor?
So, Minister, one of your biggest donors made some remarks that people are calling racist and misogynistic. What's your response?
Well, what he said was inappropriate and rude.
And wrong?
No, that was last time.
Were they racist?
Well, people can make their own judgments.
What's your judgment?
Wouldn't you like to know?
Yes, that's why I asked.
The important thing is that he apologised, and it was all a very long time ago.
It was 5 years ago, and he was in his 50s.
Are you saying older people can't change? Sounds a bit ageist.
He gave millions of pounds to your party. Shouldn't you return the money?
No, because money doesn't have morality. You can't say that just because bad people gave it to you, you can't do anything with it. Otherwise, the City of London would go out of business immediately.
So you're happy to keep it?
I welcome any money.
You welcome it?
Just in general. I mean, if I see a few coins on the floor, I'll pick them up. I don't care if they were dropped by a homophobe.
£10 million is a bit more than some spare change.
Yes, and surely it buys you at least one free pass.
What?
And after all, it was a private conversation.
So?
So, we've all said things we regret in private conversations.
Have you said racist things in private conversations?
Not as far as you know. And look, this money is helping to keep the first brown Prime Minister in power. I mean, in many ways, that's the opposite of racism.
Sorry?
Yes, if you think about it, he was actually fighting racism in a way by trying to stop Keir Starmer becoming Prime Minister, who is, let's not forget, a white man. So, who's the real racist?
If this donor said these things in a work meeting a few years ago, don't you think there's a good chance that he's said similar or worse things at other times, and that now there's a good chance that details of that will come out?
I don't want to think about that. So I won't.
So just to confirm, you won't say it was racist?
Look, if we keep saying that people who support us who are racist, well, we won't have much of a party left.
Do you agree with Lee Anderson?
Well, that depends. A month ago I did, now I don't.
Now that he's defected, is there anything that could make you join Reform?
Well, as I say, I welcome any money.
Thank you, Minister. Next up, as rumours continue to swirl about the royal family, we discuss some of the most ridiculous conspiracy theories of the moment, including the bizarre notion that this entire news channel is run by just one man wearing different ties.
No, surely not. Surely this YouTube channel is not run by one man wearing different ties. That can't be true, guys. That surely cannot be true. That can't be true. Fake news! It's got to be fake news, guys. It's got to be fake news. Matt Green Comedy, guys. Check out his channel, youtube.com/Matt Green Comedy, guys. Make sure you subscribe. Check out all his videos. Give him a like. Share his content. He does some wonderful, wonderful work. And check out his shows as well. Whenever he does them, if you ever get a chance to go to one of his shows, please do so. You will have a great time. I am confident of that. So, guys, the next story we have for you is from The Independent, an interesting one to say the least, guys. So, the headline is Schoolchildren offered vapes spiked with spice via Snapchat. So this exclusive from Independent reveals that letters sent to parents at West London school raises concerns about young people experiencing severe health problems after using vapes laced with drugs. What? So this is really... so school kids are offered vapes which are spiked with spice. Wow, this is cause for concern. This is a very worrying to say the least. Like, I mean, I know obviously we know kids like to get up to no good and try to do cool things, shall we say, hit things, but I don't like that their vapes are now being drugged even more. But here, from what it's potentially saying, this is quite concerning. Let's read into a bit of it, guys. So school children are being offered vapes spiked with drugs, which are being distributed via Snapchat, the Met Police has warned. A letter sent to parents at a school in West London raised concerns about the risk of young people experiencing severe health problems after using vapes which contain drugs such as spice and THC. What? Synthetic cannabinoids, better known as the street name spice, are substances being made in labs designed to minimize the effect of cannabis, which can cause chest pain, seizures, extreme anxiety, and suicidal thoughts. They have been widely consumed in UK prisons for more than a decade. In a letter exclusively shared with the Independent, alerts parents with a concerning issue affecting our school community. It warns spice is a harmful psychoactive drug that can cause severe health problems. It added, we wish to emphasise the importance of informing parents about the hazards associated with unregulated vape pens, given the recent surge in relative incidences. Wow. This is... It never crossed my mind that I thought that... well, it should have crossed my mind, if I'm absolutely honest, that vapes could be another way of putting in enhancing drugs that could cause severe damage to them. Now this creates a whole new problem, because obviously we're trying to get people off smoking and using vapes as an alternative. Now you're going to have this massive battle within vapes now in the vape industry, unless you ban it outright. There's going to be vapes which are perfectly okay, and there's going to be vapes with drugs in them that could be really, really harmful. That's why we're now facing this potential new type of drug war, drug problem, shall we say, in the UK, if it's not already happening elsewhere in other places. So law enforcement authorities across London, including our local police officers, have seized numerous vapes from students in the past week. Some of these devices are undergoing testing to detect dangerous Class B substances such as spice and THC, an active component in cannabis. So this is a display of disposable vapes. And to be fair, there's like loads and loads of shops now. That there are shops, lots of vape shops and whatnot around now. But obviously they are supposed to not sell to under 18s. But this is going to be an issue, and this for children. This is becoming an issue for parents and teachers and police, and how they manage and respond to this. So the letter states vapes that contain drugs are believed to be distributed via social media apps, including Snapchat. You can't control social media. This is a problem that you cannot control. Inhaling spike through a vaping pen is particularly hazardous for young people, explains the letter, leading to various health issues such as breathing difficulties, chest pains, heart palpitations, seizures, extreme anxiety, paranoia, suicidal thoughts, psychosis, vomiting or diarrhea, and an acute kidney injury. In some instances, a single dose can prove fatal. Something tells me we're going to have a story in the future about someone dying with response to vaping pens. I feel like that's going to happen. I'm not looking forward to when it happens. An independent recent report that a group of children from a school in Eltham, southeast London, were taken to hospital after inhaling a spiked lead vape, with one of the pupils left in a coma. News Scotland Yard spokesperson said in recent weeks 4 vapes which had been sent for testing were all found to contain the drug spice rather than the THC. This includes one of the vapes recovered after an incident in Eltham. The Independent reported that thousands of incidents of spiking have emerged in England and Wales ahead of fresh year's weekend kicking off at universities, with vaping now a target for spiking. Dawn Dyche, chief executive and founder of the national charity Stomp Out Spiking, told The Independent there is not enough awareness amongst the Britons that vapes can be spiked. So this has been happening for a while, and it's not been something that's been talked about enough. I'm not like right now. What I'm trying to think of right now is how do you tackle this? This is the question I'm asking myself right now. How's the best way to tackle this? How easy is it to say to try this blueberry or bubblegum flavour vape? Miss Dines added. She said she has supported a mother of 3 who was spiked with a vape, who found herself slumped down outside the front of her club. Miss Dine added, she said, if I was being raped, I couldn't even open my eyes to know who was doing it to me. She just couldn't move. We don't know what was in the vape, and I don't believe she was drinking alcohol. Her friend called an ambulance and she was taken to hospital, and they didn't do any tests to find out what was in the vape. This is routine and healthcare settings. Miss Dines had heard the most horrific accounts of different types of spiking incidents in the last 2 decades, and she has been talking to victims, she added. Helen Constantine, chief executive of Talk About Trust, told The Independent vape spiking is becoming more prominent, and unfortunately it is coming across our radar more and more. Ms. Condemn, who organisation supports spiking victims and raising awareness of the issue in schools and universities, says vape spiking commonly causes extreme nausea and memory blackout. Motives of spiking vapes are similar to other forms of spiking, can involve sexual assault, robbery, and pleasure at seeing that someone's distress, the campaigner added. Yeah, like it's dangerous enough, obviously, in adults, but we're talking about kids here potentially coming across this. Mrs. Conabare said it was easy to find out how to spike disposable vapes online. When we're talking about schools about vaping, we highlight the importance of not sharing vapes with people you don't know well, especially at festivals and outside bars and clubs, she added. We've also encouraging people to keep their vapes safe so they aren't tampered with. I know that there is obviously a caution about people using vapes as an alternative to cigarettes, to try and keep them onto addicted. So, but this is new to me that vapes could be spiked. This is new to me, guys. And it's easy to say, well, you should have known this, but I can't keep up with every single story if I'm honest, guys. But this is extremely concerning. I wasn't aware that you could spike vapes. I honestly was not aware. And now that I know about this, I'm kind of like, wow. So this is something that's going to be going on for a while, and it could become a major issue if it's not challenged and dealt with. I hope this starts getting the attention it deserves. And my worry is that it's going to take somebody dying, a school child, to die before mainstream media picks up more on this issue and tackles it more, and police tackle it more, and NHS respond appropriately to it. That's my fear, that it's going to be before it actually can be taken, before more is being done. Because that's what tends to happen with most of these situations, is that when someone finally dies from one of these things, that's when everybody stands up and says, oh, maybe we should do something. As this always happens. It's a very cause for concern. Obviously, I'll try and keep an eye out more stories. But yeah, just be careful where you buy your vapes from. Pretty much, if you have children and you're listening to this, and they do take vapes, yeah, just it's I don't see how you can control this. I don't really have a clear answer for this right now, because this is kind of this is quite new to me. I honestly didn't know about the spiking of vapes, and that's really worrying, because I'm not sure how you can control that apart from telling people you shouldn't be getting vapes from people you don't know, sort of thing. That's kind of the premise of what they're saying. And I'm just like, well, that's not really enough to stop people falling into these dangerous categories. So this next one, guys, got is from Open Democracy. But before I do, just so you know, guys, if you are interested, if in exclusive content, additional content, as well as what's here on this channel, you can find it on both Rumble and Patreon. The content is free to watch on both of those social media accounts, guys. So if you have a Rumble account, you can watch exclusive content at Reganelite. The link is for that is in the description. The same is for Patreon. There is a paid subscription on Patreon which has other content which is non-political related. But if you want to watch additional content that I do, which sometimes I can be a bit more sweary mouth ranty on certain videos on there, you can do that on Patreon and just watch that for free. All you have to do is create an account on Patreon and follow me on there, and you can watch the content for free. And also, guys, if you enjoy and like my little snippet short stories, you could also find them as well on Instagram at Reganelite Shorts, and on TikTok as well, which I'm developing quite a nice following on TikTok as well. So if you guys use either those social media apps, you could also follow me on them for any of my YouTube shorts that drops every 6 hours. Yes, that's every 6 hours, 24/7 for reference. So this next one, you guys have got 2 more articles to go. So this next one here is from Open Democracy. And the headline is: the Conservative Party have taken £1.3 million from from a donor group linked to Israeli settlements. The Amnesty International said Rishi Sunak must review donations from the JCB and its directors after the findings. So this was just a few days ago, this article. But obviously, we've been talking about recently about a Conservative donor and the comments that he's made. Well, the Conservative Party are apparently taking donors from those who are linked to the Israeli settlement scheme, which are obviously, if for those who know what's happening, they're pushing out people within the West Bank, which they have no right to, illegally settling on top of their lands of Palestinian people there, and they're taking donations from a group linked to them. Allegedly, that is what the story is here. Once again, I see this as the Conservative Party will just don't care. They don't care who it is, as long as you're giving us money. We're not going to say anything. And that's exactly how I see this. I would actually be. This sounds. The problem is, this doesn't surprise me that this comes from the Conservative Party. If this was from the Labour Party, I would be fuming, because of obviously they're going to be the next party in government. But sadly, to me, it's like this does not surprise me, because this is the Conservatives we're talking about here. That's just how it seems to me, anyway. So the Tories have taken more than £1 million from a British consulting giant and its directors after the UN linked it to the destruction of Palestinian villages. The digger firm JCB was one of 22 firms identified in a UN report 4 years ago, after photos showed its machinery being used to build Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank. Wow. So it's just it's quite blatant from the looks of it here. The company, officially JC Bamford Excavators Limited, was accused of being involved in the supply of equipment and materials that facilitate the construction of settlements. Now, analysis by Open Democracy showed that since the UN report was published, the Conservative Party has accepted more than £1.3 million from JCB and the Bamford family, which run the company. This includes almost £218,000 from JCB companies and £983,000 from Mark Bamford, one of the directors of JC Bamford Excavators. A further £100,000 was given by the company chair, Anthony Bamford, who is a Conservative peer. Oh, he was given a peerage as well. Oh, how nice of them. Most recently, JC Bamford Excavators Limited gave £40,000 to Conservative MP Simon Clarke to fund the employment of a campaign manager. I wonder how Simon Clarke feels about them. I would like someone to ask Simon Clarke next time he goes and does a media round. You you allegedly took £40,000 from JC Bamford. How do you feel about settlers taking lands that they are not entitled to them? What's your personal opinion of it? Ask him that question. We know he's going to dodge it, but just put the question on him and see how he feels about it. JCB has rejected claims that it contributes to human rights abuses in the West Bank. But both a UK trade watchdog and the director of the UK charity Lawyers for Palestinian Human Rights said JCB is failing to do due diligence on who buys and uses this kit. So they're claiming that, okay, so before we go even further, so they are saying that they are nothing to they're saying they are nothing to do with the human rights abuses in the West Bank. But it's obviously, what they're saying here is obviously JCB are selling their equipment and their stuff to those in Israel who are using their company and their equipment, their stuff, to build settlements in the West Bank at the expense of Palestinian people. Now, it's entirely possible that JCB have nothing to do with the resettlements have nothing to do with the resettlements over there in any way, shape or form. It's entirely possible that is the premise, and they're just selling their products to other people, and that could be the premise that they could make and the argument they make. Or they're absolutely fully aware and they just don't care, because at the end of the day their bottom line is all that matters, which is the same premise as what the Conservative Party care about, their bottom line, really. So I'm just putting that out there. I'm not saying they are, but it's entirely possible. So JCB has long faced allegations of its links to settlements in the West Bank. The Israeli military has been photographed using its bulldozers to demolish Palestinian homes since at least 2006. Oh, that's kind of hard to fight. That's kind of hard to defend yourself from that point then, if you've been used since 2006. Yeah, that's kind of hard to shake that off. Amnesty International describes the company as a key supplier of machinery used in its systematic violation of human rights, adding that it has failed to take effective action. Responding to Open Democracy's finding, Amnesty UK Economic Affairs Director Peter Frankel said any potential donations from JCB must come with an enormous health warning. Under international human rights standards for business, JCB has a clear responsibility to take measures to ensure its goods are not used in the commission of human rights violations. For years, it's been saying there should be serious consequences for JCB if it fails to take measures to prevent its goods being misused overseas. It added the Conservative Party should urgently review all further donations from JCB until it can be shown that the company has taken reasonable steps to stop its equipment being used to unlawfully demolish Palestinian homes in the occupied territories. Ah, God. Neither JCB nor the Conservative Party responded to Open Democracy requests for comment. What a surprise. Due diligence. In 2021, a UK government watchdog found that JCB did not take any steps to conduct human rights due diligence of any kind, despite being aware of alleged adverse human rights impact. It followed a complaint from Lawyers for Human Rights, Palestinian Human Rights, which accused the company of not operating in line with the OECD guidelines. Because its machinery is used in the demolition of Palestinian property, the OECD is a membership of organisation for Western governments overseeing aspects of trade and economic policy. The complaint also accuses JCB of contributing to adverse human rights impacts and failing to seek ways to prevent and mitigate this. It was filed to the UK's National Contact Point, the UK NCP regulator, which works to enforce OECD rules. In December 2019, the same day, the then Prime Minister Boris Johnson invited cameras to film high-profile election stunts at the JCB cab manufacturer in Staffordshire, which saw him drive the Brexit-themed digger truck through a polystyrene wall. And yeah, that was a JCB truck. You remember him driving through the Brexit wall, getting Brexit done and all that nonsense. In its ruling, the watchdog said JCB had a clear business relationship with its sole supplier in Israel, the company called Cosmosto, and it was not carrying out human rights due diligence in its supply chain. The watchdog concerned that the use of machinery in Israeli settlements cannot be conclusively linked to JCB because the company did not have leverage over the entire market, which could include suppliers of second-hand machinery. But Tesku Shotu, director of Lawyers for Palestinian Human Rights, told Open Democracy that JCB knows it must urgently implement effective due diligence measures to prevent and mitigate its proven use of its products in severe human rights violations against Palestinians. I think they know, but they just don't care. I think that's the picture's starting to be painted here. He says the UK National Contact Point asked JCB to set up action plans on how it will address its involvement in human rights violations. This must include making detailed inquiries with Cosmosco, the sole distributor of JCB products in Israel, and should it pose its contractual provisions to ensure that they are not in use of human rights violations. If Cosmosco is unwilling to accept such controversial provisions, then JCB should consider ending its business relationship with its supplier. It won't do that unless you force JCB to do so. You can't force them to do that. I don't see how you can force JCB in this situation. Furthermore, JCB said utilise its own live link technology, which is embedded in all of its products. This will provide JCB with real-time data to track, trace, and ready to immobilise its products if they are located in high-rise areas of the West Bank. Shooted added that if JCB chooses not to effectively act to prevent its machinery from being used in illegal Israeli settlements, then it should be a matter of serious concern to the British public, parliamentarians and government. The company made profits of almost £297 million in 2022, paying its directors up to £6.8 million. Human rights activists said they have evidence that at least 56 separate instances where JCB machinery was being used in occupied Palestinian territories resulted in human rights violations, mostly between 2011 and 2021. They include demolitions of 13 residential and 17 agricultural structures in Kibbutz Hassam, a small Palestinian community in northern Jordan Valley, in 2021. Israeli authorities have stopped residents from connecting to their energy and water grid, and the community had faced at least 5 other demonstration incidents earlier in the same year. Amnesty International claims, as well as destroying Palestinian buildings in Kibbutz Hamsev, JCB diggers were also used to demolish water tanks and farming equipment used by the residents. The charity said that on other occasions, JCB machinery was used to uproot 450 olive trees in 2019 and destroy a mosque that was under construction in 2021. This is not looking good. Yet criticism of JCB has not affected the company's relationship with the Conservative Party. In 2022, Boris Johnson even received a donation worth £23,853 from the company boss Anthony Bamford and his wife to pay for a wedding celebration costs, including the marquee, flowers, waiting staff and an ice cream van. Oh, how very generous of them. SNP Chris Stevens told Open Democracy, these are serious questions for Rishi Sunak to answer over why the Tory party is accepting huge donations from the Bamford family, given their excavator company JCB has allegedly been involved in illegal Israeli settlements in the West Bank. In addition to answering questions on these financial links, both the Tories and the Labour Party must stop sitting on their hands and instead demand an immediate ceasefire in Gaza before more lives are lost or further tragedy occurs. A spokesperson for JCB had previously rejected claims that the company contributes to and is responsible for or otherwise linked to in any way to adverse human rights abuses in the occupied Palestinian territories, either directly or indirectly. They also reject claims that JCB has failed to mitigate or prevent such adverse human rights protest. I'm still having a hard time, but originally, my thoughts was, okay, maybe JCB doesn't know that their products are being used in it. But then when it said since 2006, I'm like, no, they definitely know. Like, we're talking about 2006. Like, we're talking like 16 years, something like that. It's apparently been used. And you're going to tell me that they don't know that it's been used down there? Yeah, I'm trying to have a hard... Yeah. I mean, come on. Like, it's pretty blatant, guys. Pretty blatant. Where's Ollie gone? Ollie's very happy. He's very happy today. For those who know, if you want to know about Ollie and whatnot, you'll see him on live streams more often than not. He's not usually appearing on premiere videos, but he is there and he's very happy today. So no lava lamp or orb, but they'll be appearing on our next live stream. So guys, one more article for you guys before we wrap things up. This one is from Barline Times, guys. But just before you do, make sure if you haven't already, please hit that like button and share across social media so others are notified of this video, because it really does help. So Sunak's private meeting with Murdoch and right-wing editors were purely social, says the government. Voters will never know what was discussed between the PM and the media bosses. Yes, that's right, guys. It's very important. Yeah, they were just meetings. There was nothing there. It was just a social gathering between Rishi Sunak, Rupert Murdoch, and certain right-wing media mongols. That's all it was, guys. There was nothing there to read into whatsoever. Nothing at all. I just feel like playing that broken news story. The one about of who Rupert Murdoch is going to choose to be his next prime minister, because that's really what it feels like. Sunak and Murdoch. Yeah, we know what's happening here. And remember, guys, this is also important. Remember, Keir Starmer has had at least 2 meetings, at least one meeting with. He had one article. He did an article in the Sun at one point. Keir Starmer. Let's not forget that. And he's had a few meetings with Rupert Murdoch. Oh, you didn't know that? Yeah. Of course, he's had meetings with Rupert Murdoch. He's been to one of his parties, lavish parties as well. And the thing is, because of the way the system is, it's like if he ignored Murdoch, completely ignored the right-wing media press, and didn't have any kind of meetings or whatsoever associated with them, I think they would run much more harder campaigns against him. But maybe I'm just reading too much into it. I don't know. But Keir Starmer has had meetings with Rupert Murdoch. It's very important to make that point. You simply type in Murdoch and Keir Starmer. It's really not that hard to find some stories on it. So the public will never be told what Rishi Sunak discussed in private meetings with members of the Murdoch family and leading right-wing newspaper editors due to them being held without civil servants present or minutes being taken, Byline Times can reveal. Of course not. He answers to these people because the media are the ones who control the mindset. Yeah, the media are the ones who do it. They are the ones who push the Prime Minister around. That's how it is. The Prime Minister met media representatives on more than any other sector of the UK economy between July and September last year. Analysis by Byline Times found in December. There was a story not too long ago as well that Rupert Murdoch had declared that he had lost any kind of interest in Rishi Sunak, and he was kind of thought he was a dead duck at this point as well. So now the Freedom of Information request by this newspaper has revealed that not one of the PM's meetings with journalists or media barons last summer was minuted with officials describing them as social or informal gatherings. No independent civil servants were present. Instead, Cabinet Office pointed to the presence of a special advisor who is political but paid for by the taxpayer. Every single one of the PM's 8 media meetings in that time was with the right-leaning media outlets. So he didn't talk to you guys Byline Times or The Guardian or, the iNews. None of the left-wing. I wonder why he wouldn't talk to any other ones or centre-left media cabinets. I wonder why only certain ones. That doesn't seem very fair to me, An official for the Cabinet Office told Byline Times since 2011, the government has proactively published details of all meetings, including social and political, between ministers and senior media executives. This including formal meetings or engagement with such senior media figures. There is no requirement to take minutes as they are not structured or formal government meetings. As set out in the relevant transparency release entities, the engagements in which you have expressed an interest were informal, social or political engagements outside the terms of the Act. We would note that the Prime Minister was accompanied to such informal media engagements by a special advisor. And this is not what they're supposed to do. It's supposed to be civil servants in the room, but they're not allowed in. But Rose Witherden, senior research officer at the campaign group Transparency International UK, said that if any government business was discussed, the contents need to be made public. Transparency over who the ministers are meeting and why is vital in allowing the public to see who has access as potential sways of those in power. Well, we know that there's absolutely no question government business was discussed behind those closed doors. Absolutely no question. Regardless of who they're talking to, if official government business is discussed, engagements should always be recorded in an appropriate manner. When these interactions are talking about government policy occurred in social meetings, the rules still apply and the content must be made public. The Lib Dem Chief Whip Wendy Chamberlain told the MPs that this outlet, it looks like the Prime Minister was using a loophole to get out the following using transparency requirements for those meetings. Rishi Sunak promised integrity, accountability, and professionalism when he came into number 10. That's a good joke. But all we had to seize is more sleaze and scandal from the Conservative Party, she added. The Prime Minister met senior executives from Rupert Murdoch's media empire alone 4 times in the space of 3 months compared to just 1 for NHS representatives. Wow. Just 4 times. Compared to the NHS who are crying out, for a meeting with Prime Minister Sunak. It's funny that he has time for Murdoch and the media empire. But, when it comes to, really serious stuff, oh no, I'm a bit busy at the moment. Sunak met the Daily Mail editors twice in that time, while meeting housing sector figures once. Several of the meetings were listed as social, meaning they're unlikely to have been minuted. These include meetings with the departing News Corporation CEO Rupert Murdoch, and separately his son Lachkan, who will shortly take over at the helm. Lexi Kenakal-Kawana, chief executive of independent press watchdog Impress, said, at a time when journalists across the country are being frustrated by low government compliance with freedom of information requests, serious steps should be taken to ensure the public are informed of what's going on in Westminster. The lack of clarity regarding what goes on in key meetings between the Prime Minister and senior members of the media industry certainly does not help. We have an election on the horizon where voters will expect journalists to act independently and hold politicians to account. We know that doesn't happen on their side. Poor transparency only opens up the floor to speculation, ultimately damaging the already fragile trust in both journalists and politicians. And you can read the full meeting declaration over 3 months over the summer. Here, there's a link for that as well. So you can see here. So we'll just read these lots. So these are Sunak's media meetings from July of September 2020 to September 2023, guys. So, on the 6th of the 7th, 2023, organisation individual Paul Dusk, the editor-in-chief of DMG Media, purpose of meeting, informal media engagement to discuss the work of government. Same day, organisation individual The Spectator, purpose of meeting, social meeting, guys, just a social meeting. On the 4th of the 8th, 2023, organisation individual Lachlan Murdoch, co-chairman of News Corp, executive chairman of CEO of Fox Corporation. The purpose of meeting, social meeting, just a social meeting, guys. The 7th of the 9th, 2023, organisation individual Rupert Murdoch, Prosperator of News Corporation, purpose of meeting, social meeting, guys, just another social meeting, that's all it was. 19th of the 9th, 2023, organisation individual Victoria Newton, editor of The Sun, Alex Bond, the CEO of Channel 4. The purpose of the meeting, The Sun Who Cares Wins Award. 26th of the 9th, 2023, organisation individual Sir Ted Verney, editor of the Daily Mail. The purpose of the meeting, informal media engagement to discuss the work of government. It's just an informal media engagement, guys. 26th of the 9th, 2023, organisation individual Paul Goodman, editor of the Conservative Home. Purpose of the meeting, informal political and media engagement to discuss the work of the government. 30th of the 9th, 2023, organisation individual Tony Gallagher, editor of the Times, Stephen Sedwell, deputy political editor of the Times. The purpose of the meeting, dinner and meeting at the Conservative Party conference. And I don't know if this is... Yeah. Oh, I see. So this graph here, guys. So this shows the engagement that he has had here with engagement that the Prime Minister has had with all these and with all these respective sectors here. So you have here right at the top media and journalism he spent more time with, education, and then manufacturing, tech and AI, finance, energy, campaigning, and you can see right at the bottom there, police, industrial general, house building and healthcare is apparently only one meeting there, whereas he's had, according to Byline Times, more than 8 meetings with media journalists there. Let's see, 3 meetings with tech, AI, finance and energy, according to them, 2 on campaigning, 4 on manufacturing, and 5 meetings with at least with education there. That might have something to do with his maths stuff, shall we say, there, I think is probably the reason there. This is why we need to have media reform. I generally am still holding my breath and hoping that when So Keir Starmer gets into Downing Street, number 10, becomes Prime Minister. I just hope that he introduces some kind of media reform to change this country for the better. I really hope so. I might be jumping the gun a little bit, but I really do hope so, because we do need something done, guys. We really do need something done. And when it comes to the media and the control that they have over politicians, there's so many problems, so much entanglements of corruption and problems that we have, and it's one of many things that we need to introduce into this country. Leviston, we need Leviston implemented, because the media are out of control, and they are looking at their own interests rather than the interests of the British public, and that needs to change. So guys, we have reached the end of Regan's News Round. What did you guys think of the 7 stories we covered today? Various topics from different, various topics we covered today, guys. Some interesting ones to say the least. What did you guys think of them? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. What did you think about each individual one? From JCB, the links to Israeli settlements, to the £10,000 fines for haulers there. The British troops who are still suffering at what happened in the 2003 Iraq War, to even this story we just covered. Let me know your thoughts about all these stories in the comment section down below. If you've watched all the way through, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. But just before you guys run out, if you haven't already, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. Share this across social media so others are notified of this video, and subscribe, because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to be notified of whenever I upload a video or go live, hit that bell notification icon so you be notified. If it doesn't work, it means you need to turn your notification back on, back off, and back on. That doesn't just apply to me, that applies to any of your YouTube subscriptions that you have notifications on. If you wonder why they don't work, turn it off, turn it back on, and that should fix the problem. It's a YouTube thing. It's not something that YouTubers can fix, unfortunately. And if you want to go one step further and financially support me in the work I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p. Or you can even join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content there as well. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope to catch you all very, very soon.